It's hard on everybody that loves SMU and involved with our intercollegiate athletic programs or simply the entire university effort. I don't intend to review the NCAA report simply because it's been out and I'm sure you've all had a chance to read it, the press release, as well as many of you I know have read the entire report. But I do want to share a few thoughts before we get underway. First, I believe that SMU has a very strong compliance program. We have had it audited externally. We have changed and added to our enforcement and compliance activities. And I think in terms of how compliance programs are structured in the United States, that ours is certainly one of the strong ones and is identified as being so. As this particular case certainly underlines, however, individuals, if they choose to violate rules, can choose to do so. And this is a situation in which several note that they knew what the rules were and they chose to go in another direction. We as an institution have to accept responsibility for all violations, whether or not they're done by ignorance or done by intention, and move to make sure that we can learn as much as we can from this experience as we go forward. There are a number of the findings that deeply disturb us relative to the penalties that are placed on our student athletes, and we'll be reviewing whether or not to appeal these over the next 15 days, which fits with the NCAA policy. Most of our student athletes had no involvement whatsoever with any of the issues that resulted in violations. And so as a result, we're very troubled about their lack of opportunity for postseason play, either on a team or as an individual. There are a number of these things that we'll be looking at in the coming days, but we want everybody associated with SMU to understand that we are committed to excellence. We're committed to being in compliance with NCAA standards. When that doesn't occur, we'll act swiftly to address it, as we have in this case, and then we want to move forward. It's important for us to evaluate the situation, decide what's best for the institution and its programs, and then move forward. Throughout this process, Rick Hart and his staff, Kyle Conder and the staff that we have in compliance have all been working very hard with NCAA and with institutional officials to make sure that not only do we discover what was going on in this situation, but also, again, to improve our program as it goes forward. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Rick for a few comments, and then we'll take your questions, as Brad Cheves noted.
Good afternoon. This is almost the end, I suppose, of a long process, and a process that as an athletics director, you don't anticipate going through. I was drawn to SMU for a number of reasons when I came here in 2012. And chief among those reasons were the institutional values, and in particular the values of President Turner. And so it's a sad day for many reasons. One, that our athletics program has brought negative attention to our outstanding university. And we're embarrassed by that. But as President Turner alluded, the thing that bothers me the most, and the thing that's been most difficult today, as we learned of the Committee on Infractions decision, was meeting with our student athletes and the young men who are impacted by the decision of individuals to act against our standards and our values, and now are being penalized because of that. And so for me, my attention today in large part has been, again, on those young men and on things we might do or consider to help them move forward and to mitigate the impact on our men's basketball, men's golf student athletes.
Okay, with that, we'll be glad to take some questions.
Brad? Yes, Brad Towns from the Dallas Morning News. I noted in your news release that the university disagrees with the conclusion of the committee that Coach Brown failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance. Should I take that to mean that you have Coach Brown has your full support going forward?
Well, Coach Brown has my full support going forward. Obviously, you can see from some of the things in the report, there are adjustments that we are going to have to make. There are adjustments we've made, and he's very much involved with those too. And so we intend for him to be our basketball coach in the future.
Next.
Rick, can you characterize the conversations and the reaction from the athletes when you talk to them?
Yeah, it was very emotional, understandably unexpected, unfair. I think they, reacted very strongly to having an opportunity taken from them that they deem very special, and that they work hard to earn the right to participate in. And so this morning it was about making sure they know we care about them, making sure they understand that while they didn't play a role in this, and while we're all going to have to deal with some adversity that's resulting from, again, these decisions of others, that we were going to support them, and we asked them just to work with us and to try to demonstrate some patience as it relates to any decisions they may or may not make in the coming days until we could all process this and then get together again to discuss it further.
If you would, just identify yourself and your outlet.
Jack, thanks, CBS 11 News. I wanted to ask, what is going to be the determining factor on whether you appeal this decision as far as the student athletes are concerned? You said this is really unfair, so why would there be any deliberation?
Well, the implication for appealing, it takes about 3 months to get the hearing set up. It can take anywhere from 3 to 4, even there have been instances 5 months. It takes about a month to get a decision out of it. During that period of time, you have signing dates for early signing dates in November. You may very well go into a signing date in February. So the implications of that on recruiting. We also want to understand completely what the implication is if we appeal something. Is it continued going forward? Once the decision's made, does it still, if you don't win the appeal, does it still apply to that year? We don't want it carrying on to another year. We have literally been trying to get through this like you probably have over the last few hours. And so we've got to find the answer to those questions on the appeal. Now, relative to some of the others, I think there's a clear basis for appeal, and that is it's a practice of the NCAA that if a student athlete is in a sport that you have team and individual performance, that it applies to both. In golf, that's even more unfair than the whole team. It's for the individuals not to be able to compete. And we have, obviously, a very good golfer that's a senior that would want to repeat. There's an issue about forfeiting games that supposedly that we had a player that was not eligible. That was never brought up to us during the whole time of this 18 months of this investigation. We learned about that when we got to the hearing. And so we don't believe, we need to investigate that more clearly because that particular violation occurred before he was a student athlete here. He was also, as a part of this, given exemption from any kind of violation reported to him, and the NCAA believes that's going forward. I think we understood it to be period. So there are a couple of things that we know we're going to consider very seriously of appealing, and then the general end of the season, we simply have a few questions to answer before we decide. We have 15 days to decide, and we will. It's not as simple as it sounds like it would be.
Mike Leslie, Channel 8. In your assessment of the facts, did Larry Brown lie to the NCAA?
To me?
Yes.
I think in the first instance, he did, but in that same meeting, he said, wait a minute. And then he told how it occurred. And so I think in sort of the pressure of the moment, he probably reported how he wished it were. but he corrected it, and so in the same meeting. And so as a result, I think if it had any impact, it was very short-lived.
Bill Nichols, Dallas Morning News. Rick, can you just assess what the NCAA may have said during the meeting, and if they gave you some comparable ideas as to, studies as to other cases they were going to weigh in terms of penalty?
Well, there wasn't really anything Bill said in the hearing that would have helped us to assess the potential penalties that we would be subject to. I mean, as you all do, you know the new guidelines, and we know those guidelines as well. But my understanding is in a universe of one right now. There is no case precedent, I don't believe, under this new penalty guideline. And so we don't have that context to try to evaluate, our penalties versus maybe some others. I think my disappointment again comes from, I believe the structure provides an opportunity to hold individuals accountable if individuals participated in and committed violations. And by and large, I think that occurred, and it reflected its ability to do that. But what I have trouble with is how that correlates to having student athletes who were not involved in any of the violations be held accountable for that.
And isn't that the reason, one of the reasons you can't appeal a case simply to say that it is